Hello, Turning Point CT. We are back with another podcast, and today we're going to be talking about what 2017 was like and just reflecting on that, and we're welcoming 2018. So today we have me, Allie, and we also have
Eliza.
Hey, Eliza.
Hey.
So, looking back on 2017, what was something that you were proud of that happened?
Well, I think like a big obvious one was that I had my daughter in February 2017. So well, obviously it was a big event in my life, but it also involved me kind of facing a lot of my fears, and eventually breaking up with Willow's father also forced me to kind of reflect on things that I want in my life, how I feel about myself, and how I feel about my family and my daughter. So I faced a lot of fears and made a lot of really difficult decisions.
That's nice. I like that. Of course, Willow is your proud one. I love that. I guess something I'm proud of is, well, really two main things. And one thing being that I started college again. I haven't been to school in 7 years, so that was really exciting to go back. Very intimidating, but very exciting. But I also am very proud of the fact that I hit my 2 years in recovery. That's the longest time I've ever had, and it was consistent recovery, and it was not only just, I didn't just keep the drugs, out of my system, but I also worked on myself, and I really worked on just my mental health recovery and just my own self-hate recovery, because yes, I got the drugs, I haven't used drugs, but I struggled with things that would provoke me to use the drug. So it wasn't like, I just feel like getting high. It was more than that. It was deeper than that. So I had to learn, and that's how I made the mistake of a relapse, is I didn't take care of what was going on the inside. I just figured if I got the drugs out, that's all I needed to do, and that the rest would follow. But it wasn't really like that, because the rest never came, because I never embraced it or wanted it to. I kind of just stayed stuck, and I didn't do much. So now with this new experience of this new recovery, I actually let out all my insecurities. I worked on all my resentments. I just eliminated people in my life that weren't good for me, I actually started to practice self-care, which was something I struggled with forever. So, that was something that I'm definitely really proud about, and, just getting back to school and starting to find myself and really establish myself. The first year of recovery in 2016, I was just going, and I was just like hanging on by a thread. But now I actually, rebuilt my faith a little more, and just kind of rebuilding everything, and just really finally getting my feet planted, and now starting to, work harder. So bringing on 2018. 2018 is right around the corner, so I thought it would be really cool if we just kind of, embraced it. And it can be intimidating. A whole new year can be intimidating. Even just that question that everybody always asks on New Year's Eve is, what are your New Year's resolutions? What are your New Year's goals? What are this? What are that? And it sometimes can get overwhelming, I think, and especially because we're young, too. So, like, we already get the question, what are you going to do with your life? Or what are you going to do with this? But, I think it's good, though, to set goals and just kind of, glance into the future rather than, put so much. I mean, it's good to put the goals, but maybe not put so much pressure on ourselves. So, Eliza, in 2018, what do you think you're going to do differently?
Well, I like how you mentioned that it can be a lot of pressure to make New Year's resolutions, because I think a lot of times people, not just young people, everyone just gets really caught up in the whole idea of making a resolution and making this whole dramatic kind of profound change to your life, and it's very it can be like very scary, because a lot of the things that you might commit yourself to doing, they might not be realistic, or you might have these kind of obscure, like, abstract goals that you don't really know how to achieve. And so then you kind of create this really pressurized situation where you're, like, bound to fail, and then you're disappointed in yourself, and you just kind of give up. So I think a big thing that I would do differently would just kind of be to not put so much pressure on myself to be perfect. I think I've done that kind of my whole life, given myself really high expectations, and if I don't achieve them, I give up. So I think something I'd like to try to do is just kind of embrace whatever I'm going through, the good or the bad, and let it pass and let it last if it needs to for a little while. And I think another big thing that I did this year was kind of put myself before others, which I don't do a lot. So I think that's something I want to continue doing differently. I want to put my own priorities before the priorities of other people, and I want to validate myself and not rely so much on others to do that for me.
That's so crazy that you said that that's what you want to do differently, because it's exactly like when we were forming these questions before and kind of brainstorming, that's exactly what I was thinking about. I thought that this next year, 2018, I am going to do a small goal, and it's going to be, but it's going to have a large impact, and it's going to be to, not just ease up on myself, stop beating myself up, and if I fall a little short, or if I slip a little bit, or even if I fall just flat on my face, then that is okay. My dad always taught me to just do your best. That was his big life advice for me growing up, and I always thought, what? I didn't understand what he meant, but then I get it, is that you just have to do your best for that day, and not every day is going to have the same best, and you just have to be okay with it and let the rest go. So I think just, this next year I'm going to not be so hard on myself. I'm going to challenge myself like I did this year, because I did push myself a little bit, but in a healthy way, and it wasn't even a pushing, it was a challenging, and I ended up getting amazing results from it. So I'm still going to do that as far as like when it comes to schoolwork and just work and determination and the calling in my life, but I'm definitely going to, just be a little nicer to myself. I think, like, especially because us as women and, with the mental health disorders we tend to put these crazy standards on ourselves that are just putting us down. If I don't fit in that outfit in the closet of the dressing room, like, that's okay. I'm not gonna, beat myself up over it. I'm gonna just go with the flow and be kind to myself. I feel like we are so mean to ourselves sometimes, and we wouldn't say that to somebody else, so why are we saying it to ourselves? And I just want to be a little nicer to myself this next year. What do you think you want to accomplish in 2018?
Oh, I have like a lot, and then I have a lot of big things I want to accomplish, so I think I have to remind myself that I have to do things one at a time, kind of prioritize myself. But a big thing is I'd really like to figure out where I'm going to be living and try to make a plan for that. I know some of it is out of my hands, but doing what I can. I've been saving money. I want to keep doing that. I want to kind of be realistic and look into places to live if it's not the perfect place or the nicest place, and kind of sit with it and allow myself to just be a little uncomfortable and move forward. I think that's a big one. And then a small, but not that small, but reasonable goal. I really want to get my driver's license.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I don't have that, so.
Well, that's a big one, but that's something that you can, you can take those small steps that you were talking about to achieve. That one, that's good. That's like when I was saying before about, like, it's, it's a challenge, but it has big results, you know? So, you doing that, that's totally accomplishable.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's something I should have done a little while ago.
It's okay. Well, you're supposed to be nicer on yourself now.
You're right.
I think something I want to accomplish is the internship for college. They're going to be doing the interviews in February, so, and then if I get it, I'll be doing the internship in the fall. So that is something I want to accomplish. I want to remain having the grades that I just had this semester that really surprised me. I mean, they didn't totally surprise me because I worked hard for it, but it was something I was very proud of.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yes. But, I want to get into that internship. That's definitely something I want to accomplish. And I also, something big that I want to accomplish is I just want to enjoy the moment. I want to just stay in the now. Like, I tend to look into the future and worry about things that might not ever happen, but they seem so real. And even if it seems to realistic that could happen, or there's that chance of something happening, like, not overly prepare myself for something that you might not even know about yet, and just enjoy the moment that you're having. I think I stress too much about the future, or I put pressure on the future, and I think it ends up ruining what I have now. Like, I just got into a new relationship, and I'm worried that I'll, focus so much on the future, like, well, what if this happens, and then what if that happens, and then I forget about what's happening right now, and right now it's amazing, so I need to just pause and just stay in the now. So we talked about a lot of positive things, and things and goals and all that, but reality is life isn't always up. A lot of times it's our downfalls and our backsliding and our slips that actually end up turning into something totally different, and can end up making us, but it also breaks us for the moment, or at least hurts us. So with that, what are your fears going into 2018?
I think I have a lot of fears. I think just being a person with anxiety, a lot of times I kind of approach situations like that, kind of thinking about everything that I'm afraid of, and a lot of times there's not anything really tangible that I'm afraid of. It's kind of the unknown. So going into a new year is scary because there's a lot of unknowns, and kind of having the living situation that I have is scary because there's a lot of unknowns with that, and just kind of, my daughter is growing every day, and it's like I never know what's going to happen next, and it's exciting, but it's really sad, and it's scary, and it's like overwhelming at times. So I think a lot of the things I'm excited about, I'm also afraid of, like I really want to get out of the shelter that I'm living in, but that's also really scary because I think in order to do that, I'm going to have to make a big step, maybe move somewhere I've never lived before, and I've never really been on my own in my own apartment, it's a lot of big things. So I think I'm just kind of scared of all the goals I want to accomplish, and afraid of letting myself down, which I know isn't being very kind to myself, but it's just kind of one of those things that it's always in the back of my head. I'm kind of afraid of failing. I think a lot of us get like that.
That's exactly, I was sitting here thinking, like, what are my fears, and that's one of my biggest fears. I mean, I can list 100 fears because I too, have the anxiety. I fear that I'm going to get in a car accident. I fear, the extreme to the little things, like I fear my boyfriend's going to leave me, or my mom's going to get mad at me, or, I'm going to lose my job, or this, or money's not going to come, and, it's just, you have those fears. And I don't know, like this next year coming up, obviously I fear that I'm not going to get the internship, or I'm not going to do well in school, or I'm not going to be able to afford my next step in education and things like that. But I'm really trying to, I've been afraid for a long time in my life, and I've been recently breaking out of that fear, and as cliche as it sounds, I've been turning it into faith, and it's been working out great. And I think that's what sustains me and gets rid of my fears, because for once, like, I got stuck on this question because I'm sure there's fears that my subconscious is trying to scream at me right now, but when you let faith replace that, and for me, like, my relationship with God and watching him, every time I give my faith to him, he always turns it around, always. And Like, I just give him my fears, and he strengthens my faith, and like makes a way that I never saw coming. So sometimes I feel like if I get stuck in the fear, then I'm lacking that faith, and I could be blocking something. You know, I think my fear is myself. I'm my biggest roadblock sometimes. So I think for this year, I'm trying to not have any fears, and any fears that come, I'm trying to just be like, okay, this is what it is, and what am I going to do about it? And if I can't figure out what I'm going to do about it, I'm just going to roll with it, you know, and just know that there's always something better. I've had so many failures in my life, but, you know, I've also had so many blessings that surpass all that. So I'm trying to not be afraid, you know, but obviously there's those fears. You know, I fear relapse. I fear that I'll get put in a place where I will get weak. I'll be in a sense of weakness and temptation, and I'll give in to that. I fear that, but I think I'm going to just fear God in a healthy way, in a sense, and I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to keep my fears, because I feel like some fears are healthy fears. Like, I'm afraid of ghosts, so I'm gonna continue to be afraid of ghosts because I don't want anything to do with them. But like, I'm afraid of failing, so instead I'm gonna turn that fear into motivation. I'm gonna keep that. I'm afraid of relapsing, so I'm gonna keep that fear to keep me on the straight and narrow. I'm afraid of people. You know, a lot of my friends overdosed this year, so, and you know, they're not here, so I'm keeping that fear, the fear that could have been me kind of fear, and keep that in the back of my mind as a motivation to continue to do well and help the people that are still struggling. And yeah, just kind of run with that. So as we're talking about 2017 and embracing 2018, I'd love to hear what you listeners are thinking, and I want to know about what you're proud of 2017. I want to know about what you're going to do differently in 2018, what you want to accomplish. We'd love to hear it. So jump on the forum, let us know. And we can't wait to hear you again and come back. Looking forward to our next topic. And that's a wrap.